In today's video, we're going to talk about if you should restore guitars. Basically, should you buy guitars online or at thrift stores, secondhand, that kind of deal, that are broken, and should you then try to fix them and make something out of them? Well, first off, we have to establish a little bit of who are you. And the first thing is, do you like to tinker with things? Because if you don't like tinkering with things, you're not going to enjoy yourself. It's going to be time wasted, and it's most likely not going to be fun. But if you think that it might be fun to do a minor fixing up things and see what happens, then I would say trying out restoring a guitar might actually be a good idea. It could be something that is really fun and something that you will enjoy. Now, assuming that you actually are the kind of person who would like to tinker with a guitar and see what happens, there are some things that you should think about. And the first thing is, what kind of guitar and how damaged is it? If you find a Les Paul-like guitar or something else of that fashion and it has a broken headstock, you could definitely repair that and make that into a nice guitar, but it can actually be a lot more work than you might think, so I would caution you to start there if you haven't tried something else before. Something like a Strat or a Telecaster is a great place to start. Some of you might remember this guitar. It's actually a Stratocaster that I found on eBay for about 40 bucks and that I restored. I then later reliced it because I couldn't keep myself from doing it. I'm sorry. I am at some point going to end up with nothing but beat up crazy guitars that are all reliced because I find it difficult to not relic guitars. But that's my problem. You might not have that problem. You don't have to relic guitars if you don't want to. But anyway, it was actually a lot of fun, and I made this guitar very special and personal to me by putting the time and energy into it and following the kind of specs I like and making sure the frets were polished to the highest quality I could and rewiring the entire guitar and changing things up and making the guitar better. And that's a really awesome thing you can do. And here's my next thing. That guitar cost me about 40, and I knew I would be able to make it into a guitar that I really liked. And it's also a Stratocaster, which is the type of guitar I enjoy the most, and it's Sunburst, which is actually kind of crazy to say, but I've always wanted a Sunburst Strat, probably because of John Frusciante, and I've never had one. So seeing it and realizing it wasn't that expensive and what I could do with it made me go for it. If you've never done any sort of repair work before, I would say that around 40 bucks is where you should start. Don't forget that what you're buying is essentially something broken. You're not supposed to pay full price. You're not supposed to think of this as a treasure that you found something amazing and cool. Obviously, if you find something really special, like an old beat up broken Strat from the 60s, you know, an actual Fender from the 60s, and they're asking for, I don't know, $1,000 or something like that, it's probably a smart idea to buy it because it's worth a lot more than that. So even if you don't do anything with it, you could just resell it for 10 times the amount basically. And that would obviously be really cool. But you're most likely not going to find that. You're most likely going to find a 10-year-old Squier of some sort or a 10-year-old Epiphone. They're never really going to get up in value and become something that is collectible or anything like that. And you're buying something that is broken. And yes, you're going to make it into something cool that you can play and that you can have fun with. And that is worth some amount of money, but it's not worth that much. Don't go crazy with it. Also, think about the fact that you might not be able to fix the guitar. If you buy something that is really beaten up and really broken, you might have to bite the bullet and say, hey, this is too broken. I'm never going to be able to do anything with this and I'm going to have to throw it away. The person who sold this to me should have thrown it away. They sold it to me and it's something you have to be aware of as a possibility, especially if you've never done any of it before. And so remember that if you buy a broken guitar, it might actually be something that is just going to be wasted money. And the question sort of becomes, how much money are you willing to waste? Okay, so with those two things sort of out of the way, because that's sort of where it can start, do you think you would want to restore a guitar? And also, do you have some sort of idea of how much money you're willing to put into it? After that, start looking for guitars and look for something that has seen better days but isn't that completely destroyed. Don't start this up with a broken headstock. I've already said, don't start this up with something that is super rusty and looks like it's been on the bottom of the ocean for 100 years or some crazy thing like that. Start off with something that seems like, maybe, you know, it was a beginner guitar that someone bought to their kid and their kid just didn't show any sort of care for the guitar, and it has dings and scratches, and it has, you know, a little bit of wear and tear here and there, but all in all, it's like a weekend project. I think if you start off there, you're gonna have more fun as a first time doing this than you would have if you just jumped into the deep end and bought, you know, a Gibson Les Paul that has been totally trashed and is basically firewood, and you're spending $1,000 on this pile of nothing, and then you sit there with super glue and you just try to join everything together, and it's just a mess. Yeah, don't do that. So what do I think you should do? I think you should think of it as almost like a mod project. It's not that uncommon to buy something like a Squier and changing out the hardware and changing out the pickups and putting in the things you like and making it special and unique to you. Do the same thing with this, but go a little bit further. Do things like maybe, can I repaint the body? Can I maybe do a weird paint job, something cool that is unique for me? Can I do something like a color that I have never seen on a guitar before? Those things are not that hard to do, and they can be a lot of fun, and it's a way to get something special and unique that is truly just your own thing. And I would really encourage you to try that. And when it comes to things like pickups, yes, they can be really expensive, but you can take them out, you can sell them, and you can buy new pickups, and you can try a bunch of things out, and you can just really try to figure out what works best for you. And it's a lot of fun, and again, if you like tinkering, it's going to be amazing for you. So I would really say that I encourage you to do it. So if you've been subscribed for a while, or if you have been just looking around on my channel, you know that I have done a couple of restoration videos before. I have restored 2 SG guitars. One was a Epiphone, and they're both really fun to play and interesting, unique guitars in their own way. One of them is more interesting in the visual way, and my Epiphone is more of having crazy electronics. If you haven't seen that video, it basically has a kill switch and a distortion knob. It's a passive distortion, so it's a lot of fun to just mess around with, and then it has a tone and volume, obviously, but you can do fun things like that. It also has a color that I feel like I haven't seen on that many guitars before. It's not super rare, but it's kind of fun. I've also restored 3 Stratocasters, which might sound a little bit strange, but I really like Stratocasters, and most likely I'm gonna end up with nothing but Stratocaster at some point, because I just seem to never get tired of having Strats, and I'm always looking out for new ones. I've also done a Les Paul Junior, which I hope you've seen the build series of. If you haven't, check that out. I also, at the end of last year, I relicked it, and I love it even more now. I know I have a problem when it comes to relic guitars. I didn't know you could be addicted to it, but I am. Anyway, it's a lot of fun, and I really like it. I think the guitars I enjoy the most, at the moment at least, are the guitars that I have rescued, or whatever you want to call it, without sounding too pretentious. And as a last thing, it could be a better way of getting a kit guitar. I see a lot of people build kit guitars on YouTube, and I've done a couple too, and they can be a lot of fun, but they're usually not very high quality and nothing more than something fun to do. But you can actually get nicer guitars if they are sold as broken guitars, and then you just have to do some fixing up. And if you're into building kit guitars, I would say that this might actually be a way to get a cheaper kit guitar that might actually be higher quality, and you can just customize it and go crazy. So that's actually something that I think is really good and that I would try. I hope this has inspired you and been fun for you, and that I have convinced you, which is not really what I wanted to do, but I kind of also want to do it. I hope at least that I've convinced you to try out, maybe seeing what you could do with an old broken guitar, and if you could come up with something fun and interesting and make it special and crazy and weird and wonderful. So yeah, stay awesome and cool and go and do that. And if you wouldn't mind subscribing and liking the video, please do so. I do appreciate it very much. It helps me out a lot. And yes, that's it. Go now and have fun.